The Orlando Magic might just be tougher than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Plus, why the Orlando Magic have gotten proof of concept all around the roster in this playoff series. We'll dive into some important things, big picture things, on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is April 28th, 2024. Or will be April 29th, 2024 by the time this publishes. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the site expert and editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Because you can, of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, I buried the lead yesterday. That's my fault. So we're going to reset a big concept and a big key that has developed in the course of this series. Why the Magic are now in control of the series with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Plus, we'll take the macroscopic view of things by the Magic's core pieces, core players, the things the Magic needed proof of concept for in these playoffs have stepped up in the biggest way. We're going to get to all that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. To search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. So I want to let you a little bit into my process here. Let's dive into the process of making this podcast. Typically, I write what I write for Orlando Magic Daily first. I'm not gonna lie. If you read stuff on OMD and then listen to me, you're getting a lot of the same things in a similar format. But I like to use that time to also gather my thoughts a little bit. And so, as I was going through the box score, as I was kind of reflecting, sitting back here in this chair, thinking about what I'd seen on the floor roughly 4 or 5 hours before I recorded, I think I hit on some nugget of truth. And thank you to those who listened to yesterday's show and commented on social media that, hey, this is actually a really good point. I agree. I think it's a really good point. I'm kind of upset it took me 30 minutes to figure it out and verbalize it, but I think it's important to mention here. And I think it's important as we think about this series now, as we turn toward what is now a best of 3 series, of what is the most important thing. So again, if this feels like I'm rehashing some things from yesterday, it's because I am. Let's start here. The single image that I'm going to use to define this series, the image that frankly, and shout out to our friends at Moving Pictures, the image that I hope the Magic put on their Jumbotron, put in their photo collages when we talk about this series, is Jalen Suggs smiling while Darius Garland's trying to get in his chest. While Darius Garland's trying to get under his skin. The two needed to be separated. It was double technical fouls. I sat there. I'm on the opposite end of the court. So I saw it, and I saw Jalen smiling. I'm just like, this is just awesome. That was the defining moment of this series. That was... the Magic had taken the lead at that point. Had just taken the lead at that point. And the Cavs are kind of flailing and frustrated. And so naturally, Darius Garland lashed out. But Jalen Suggs did not back down. Jalen Suggs took that and smiled about it. And then the Magic went on to blow the doors off the Cavs, 37-10 third quarter. We all know the story at this point. To me, and I spoke with a few Cavs reporters, and we'll have Chris Manning of Locked On Cavs on the show tomorrow. To me, that defined this series at this point. Yes, it's a 2-2 series. Yes, there's a lot on the line Tuesday night in Cleveland, and the series could flip 180 degrees in 48 minutes, in 48 hours and 48 minutes. We could be talking about a very different game and a very different series in a couple of days. But there's a truth here, and a really important truth, and a really important thing that is probably, as much as we talk about the defense and talk about how much fun and joy this team plays with, and all this stuff that we love about this Magic team, this to me is honestly going to be the defining characteristic. This is the defining characteristic of their culture. When the Magic lost their 2 games in Cleveland, they did not play well. We all sat there, we saw it, we said they didn't shoot well, they didn't play well, they didn't do the things they needed to do to win. But even then, even with that, they fought. They were down 16, down 20 to Cleveland in game 1. They fought back, made it a 5-point game. Lost by 14. In game 2, probably one of the worst games I've seen the Magic play all year. Just emotion was gone. Suggs being out in the first half killed them. Couldn't hit a shot still. We were going through the existential dread I talked about yesterday. But the Magic could have quit. Could have said, we'll get a bit when we get home. But no, they fought. They made that a 9-point game with 4 minutes left. They didn't have the horses to win that game in game 2. But the Magic never stopped fighting. They never stopped grinding. And we sat, and honestly, I sat here and said the Magic's defense is good enough to win. We know their offense is going to struggle. But if they bring that defense home, they're going to win. They're going to win at least one of these 2 games. And then we get to game 3 and game 4. Orlando punches first. Orlando makes the statement. Orlando, down 9 at the half, does not quit. They go 17-7 to take the lead. And what did Cleveland do both games? They folded. And maybe that's too harsh. And you can listen to our friends at Locked On Cavs to get their take on everything that happened over the weekend. But they folded. They lost by 30. And if you listen to me for any of the last 8 seasons, you'll know that I like to say that losing by 30 tells you more about the losing team than it does the winning team. The Magic just did their jobs. And so when I think about this series now, and obviously each game gives us new context and new clues and new statements, and again, everything changes with every game. When I look back at this series, at the 4 games we've played so far, that image of Jalen Suggs smiling while Darius Garland's trying to get under his skin, while Darius Garland's trying to get into his face, to me, that is the sign of a player that loves this, that loves the physicality, that loves the grind, that loves the toughness. Why are the Magic back in this series? Why does it feel like the Magic have all the momentum? Why does it feel like Cleveland's on life support? It's because even in games 1 and game 2, when the Magic lost and did not look good, even in those games, the Magic felt like the tougher team. The Magic felt like the team that was going to fight, that wasn't going to quit, that wasn't going to give in, that was going to keep grinding even if they didn't have it. When we entered this series, I think a lot of us felt like the swing stat in this series was shooting. Was the Magic shooting. And guess what? That's turned out to be pretty true. If the Magic don't make their shots in game 5, they're going to lose. Even if Cleveland is not tough. Even if Cleveland is a team that will get staggered and fall to the mat when you punch them. The Magic might stagger, but they haven't fallen to the mat. They've gotten up before the 10 count. Cleveland hasn't. Cleveland took 10 counts in the last 2 games. And that honestly says a lot. It says a lot about where these 2 teams are at. It says a lot about what these 2 teams' cultures are. And obviously, for Cleveland, it's all about this season. They need to get out of the first round to save some jobs and to legitimize the moves that they made 2 years ago. For the Magic, this is an introduction. This is the beginning of something. And if there's something that has come out of this series, and the reason why, no matter what happens, and look, we want the Magic to win. The expectation in a 2-2 series with the way the Magic have played the last 2 games is that they will win the series. Your optimism is warranted. The Magic win this thing in 6. Like, it's certainly possible to complete the first ever 4-2 sweep in Magic history. I don't know what kind of sweep we call that, but they're working on it. Your optimism is warranted. But the toughness they've shown in this series, that's going to be the most valuable thing they take from it. Moving forward to play Boston or Miami, or moving forward to next season when there's going to be a lot more pressure to win. Pressure that like the Cavs are feeling right now. The Magic have shown their toughness. They've shown what they're about. And that is just freaking awesome. I want to continue exploring that idea of the proof of concept because we're going to take a macroscopic view of the series. We'll talk about the series that Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are having and why they do look like a viable playoff duo. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver who likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It has room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop today at nissanusa.com. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. Got to pause here. Talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. We did the little ad reader at the top, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. We got to do it again. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's board. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get, like unique stickers you can trade with friends, complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel with the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel. We all want to watch sports. We all want to watch sports 24/7. But unfortunately, a lot of the offerings out there are, let's say, a little bit loud and not really substantive. What you want is expert opinions, expert analysis from people who know their teams best. And that's what Locked On gives you. Locked On Sports Day is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming and all of the insight that you expect from Locked On hosts. Locked On Sports Day brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's take a macroscopic view of the series. And this episode is a macroscopic view. So we're not talking specifically about Game 5. We're not even really talking about this team in this season. It's about what we ultimately believe this playoffs are. And these playoffs are something of a proof of concept about a lot of different pieces. A proof of concept about whether this idea the Magic have is viable. I mean, it's whether Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner can step up to the plate. It's whether Jamahl Mosley is a good enough tactical coach and not just a developmental coach. There are a lot of questions that the Magic were going to answer, a lot of fundamental questions that the Magic were going to answer that could only be answered in the playoffs. That's why we spent all season long telling you this moment, this game, these games, all of this is the most important thing that's going to happen for the Magic this year. Just getting in, feeling this pressure, and like I said this early when I thought the Magic were going to be a 7 or an 8 seed, getting your butt kicked is probably the best thing that can happen to them. And guess what? Even though the Magic are winning this series, let's not pretend that we don't know the storm cloud on the horizon in the next series. We're going to learn a lot about this team over the next 2 to 3 games, over the next 2 to 6 games. There's still a lot of basketball to be played. But one thing I think we were all eager to see is we were eager to see if the Magic's 2 stars, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, whether that was something viable for the playoffs, whether they were the kind of players who embraced and adored the stage. Certainly, one of the reasons the Magic drafted Paolo Banchero, one of the reasons I was a big fan of Banchero in that draft process, was because it felt like that Banchero loved big games. He stepped up during the NCAA tournament and played awesome. And that's really what clinched it for me. I was like, this guy loves this moment. We saw what Franz Wagner did at Eurobasket last summer, or 2 summers ago, and at the World Cup last summer. This guy loves the big stage, and we know how fiery of a competitor he is. The playoffs are different. But in the case of both of these players, and obviously we're dealing with small sample sizes, but the fact that both of them had 30-point games over the weekends, that each of them had a 30-point game this weekend, that each of them has been pretty consistent and consistently good throughout the course of this series, considering the shortcomings of this Magic roster that we all acknowledge and know, these two look like real playoff performers. These two players do indeed look like stars the Magic can build around for some time. I mean, Franz Wagner, we saw what he did Saturday. 34 points, 13 for 17 shooting, just getting where he wanted on the floor, keeping the defense off balance, eating up space, finishing around the rim, getting to the foul line. Just an awesome game. The fact that he added in some bravado on top of that we've rarely seen from Franz, beyond just, shouting and gesturing, was just incredible. And then you get Paolo Banchero in game 3 with 31 points, just putting on a masterclass from the mid-range and ensuring the Magic won that game. Not accepting defeat in any shape or form and carrying the Magic through that third quarter. This was just, these two have been awesome. Here are your numbers. In the series so far, Franz Wagner is averaging a team-high 21.5 points per game with 8 rebounds per game and 4.3 assists per game. We talk about this a lot. Playoff performers raise their numbers in the playoffs. Franz has done that. He's shooting 50.8% from the floor and 38.9% from 3. That's 7 for 18. Except for game 2, Franz Wagner has shot better than 50% in every game this series. And yes, Saturday was the only time he scored more than 20 points in a game this series, so numbers are a little skewed, but he was bouncing between 18 and 16 points, which is about his season average anyway. So Franz has played well, even with a great defender in Evan Mobley on him, for the most part. Paolo Banchero has played well too. While Banchero only had 9 points on 4 for 14 shooting in game 4, it was the first time he scored fewer than 10 points in any game since November 29th, but he's still averaging 21.3 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 4.5 assists per game while shooting, considering his shot diet and his usage, a tidy 45.5% from the floor. Paolo Banchero has shown up for the Magic. He's soaked up a lot of attention. And yes, by the way, he scored more points in his first 3 playoff games than Shaq did. That I can confirm that. Shaq only had 62 points through 3 games. Paolo Banchero has passed that in his first playoffs. And obviously he's playing 4. He's played 4, not 3 now. So he better have passed him. What this all says to me is that the Magic do have 2 young stars who are still figuring things out. You can tell they're still figuring things out. But they have 2 young stars who aren't afraid of this stage, who are going to step up at this level and do the things the Magic need them to do. When we're thinking about how the Magic build this team, how the Magic begin to construct a championship team with this core, Paolo and Franz obviously give them an advantage. Even against the size that the Cavs have, these two players are finding their way to lift their team, to do their work, to carry this team in a lot of ways. They have stepped up to the plate. There's no other way to describe it, no other way to say it. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner have stepped up to the plate. In the moments that the Magic have needed them, Franz had 23 points in the second half on Saturday. Just freaking amazing. In the moments in the moment this team has needed their two stars to be stars, they have delivered. That's not to say the job is done. That's not to say they can't get better. Paolo's still got 20 million turnovers. He had 0 turnovers in game 3, but 15 in games 1 and 2, and I believe 4 in game 4. So still work to do. No doubt about it. But considering their age, considering their inexperience in the postseason, Shaq freaking struggled in his first playoffs. 21 points per game for Shaq was really bad for him. He averaged 28, 29 that year. Everybody struggles in their first playoffs. Not these two. These guys have stepped up. And they've shown everybody that they are ready to win. Again, that's kind of the mission statement of this whole season. And that's been the mission statement of this series. That the Magic aren't just here for show. They're not just here. They're not just some plucky young team that caught fire at the right time, built their win total up, took advantage of a weakened East. That's not this team. This team is here to stay. This team is here to build. This team is here to grow. This team is here to win. And Paolo and Franz are here to lead them. Sunday saw Coach of the Year award get passed out. We'll talk about the other big macroscopic thing, how Jamahl Mosley has earned his stripes in this postseason. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at DoorDash. Look, we all want to make our moms smile. Mother's Day is right around the corner. It's coming up in May. It's early May already, guys. I know the Magic's mission statement this year was play in May, and we're going to do that, which is very, very exciting. But May means your Mother's Day. You're already late for your Mother's Day gift. Sorry. Get something thoughtful for mom today, though, on DoorDash. You can surprise her wherever you are with fresh bouquets, the latest tech gift cards, self-care treats, and more to make her day that much better. It's never too late to show your mom love on Mother's Day. And with DoorDash, you can get the surprise for her that she deserves. If your mom has a sweet tooth, if she's a tech enthusiast, if she's a beauty connoisseur, if she's outdoorsy, it doesn't matter what she's into. You can make her smile with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more with DoorDash. Shop with savings that would make her proud. With a Dash Pass membership, you'll save with a $0 delivery fee and reduced service fees on eligible orders from Dash Pass merchants that meet the minimum subtotal. Other fees, including service fees, may apply. Terms apply too. So, get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15+ on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms do apply. So award season is here. The NBA passing out their awards, continuing to pass out their awards this week. Sunday was Coach of the Year. And as expected, Mark Daniel of the Oklahoma City Thunder is your Kia Coach of the Year. Frankly, guys, no complaints there, leading a young team from the play-in tournament to the best record in the Western Conference. Yes, they have an MVP candidate. Yes, they've stocked up a lot of really good young players. No hate for the Thunder. Not until we're both in the NBA Finals in a couple years. But absolutely deserved for Mark Daniel. But Jamahl Mosley was second place. Finished second in voting. Ended up with 4 first-place votes. Got 36 second-place votes, the most second-place votes of any of the coaches. Ended up with 30 third-place votes, too, which was the second most third-place votes. Chris Finch had 31. giving him 158 points. That was a distant second. Mark Daniels scored 89 of, I believe it's the 100 first place votes. So Jamahl Mosley getting 4 first place votes was a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal, but he was excellent and obviously deserving of getting second place. Just an honor to be second place. I'm sure he feels the same way. But like I said, this is an episode where we're going to talk about macroscopic things. We're going to talk about the big picture things and kind of reset how we're feeling about what these playoffs mean for the team moving forward. And obviously, about a week ago now, we were questioning a lot of things about Jamahl Mosley. I will say this. I have probably gotten more comments about Jamahl Mosley and the job that he's done, and questions about the job that he's done more than any other facet of this team. Maybe people wanting to move on from Markelle Fultz, maybe some Wendell Carter talk, but Jamahl Mosley became a lightning rod as his team was transitioning into winning. And I would tell people, like, look, he's not going anywhere. He's done a great job. He's delivered exactly what the Magic wanted him to do. They've improved by another 10 wins this year. But I would concede, and he earned his extension, by the way. No doubt about it. He is as central to what this team is doing as anyone else. But like so many other players on this roster, that he needed to prove that he could be a playoff coach. So much of this season is about proving that this group, this team, can be playoff players, can succeed in the postseason. That's ultimately what matters. That's ultimately where everybody gets judged, is in the postseason. So, there were fair questions to ask about his tactics and about his ability to adjust and his ability to adapt to the playoffs, and games 1 and 2 did not quiet those questions. I was the first to say that I disagreed with the lineup change. I saw the logic in it, but I felt like it would disrupt the bench group a little bit too much, and certainly game 1 showed that it did, and game 2 showed that it did. And Mosley made the correct decision, obviously the correct decision, it's been proven correct, to go back to the regular rotation to kind of help this team get back into their flow. That, we could say he made a mistake at the beginning, and we absolutely can and hold him accountable to that. But he easily could have been stubborn and stuck with that lineup. And he easily could have stuck with what their plan was at the beginning, instead of saying, this isn't working, we need to reset. And luckily, they still had time to reset. I might argue that he probably cost them a game or a game and a half, but they reset, and obviously now they're tied 2-2. And every move Jamahl Mosley has made in game 3 and 4 worked. The Magic were much more settled defensively. They were blitzing Donovan Mitchell and mixing up their coverages much more effectively. They were switching more seamlessly. They were communicating more seamlessly. They were on the glass a lot more. The whole team changed. And it wasn't just more focus or playing harder. It was also some rotation decisions. It was playing Paolo when Evan Mobley was in and Jared Allen was out. It was taking Joe Ingles out of the game when Donovan Mitchell entered in game 3, when that game was still in the balance in the first half. The Magic and Jamahl Mosley have made decisions that have proven correct. It was letting Franz Wagner ride through the entire third quarter and sticking with him into the fourth to put that game away and put the foot down. From a macroscopic view, then, there's still a lot to learn. There's still a lot that the Magic are going to have to get better at, and a lot that this team's going to have to improve. And obviously, the Magic probably aren't bringing the same group back next year. We're probably going to see some additions next season. And Mosley's going to have to integrate them into a culture. But at the end of the day, the reason why Mosley was up for Coach of the Year was, yes, the Magic improved dramatically in wins from 34 to 47 wins, another 13-win improvement. But he's Coach of the Year too because this team does have an identity. This team does have a culture that they have wholly embraced. And again, that's the dichotomy between the Magic and the Cavs right now. The Cavs seem to be fracturing on the court and unsure what to do. The Magic got stronger. They took those defeats, they analyzed themselves, and got better. And that is a credit to Jamahl Mosley. That is what a good coach does, and what a good coach figures out, and what a team that's bought into their coach does. This team is bought into what Jamahl Mosley is doing, and the task is still really difficult ahead. He's got to stay one step ahead of JB Bickerstaff without getting 2 steps ahead of himself. That's what happened in games 1 and 2. Jamahl Mosley got 2 steps ahead of himself. But he has earned a lot more trust. He has earned a lot more recognition that he is not just a development and culture coach. He's proven himself this series that he can make adjustments, he can make tweaks, he can find the right buttons to push, even on a very flawed roster, to give them a chance to win. And while he is not taking home the trophy for Coach of the Year, Jamahl Mosley is a very worthy Coach of the Year candidate. And someone the Magic are certainly very fortunate to have leading their cause. I want to thank you for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all Family Sound Podcasts to your podcast enable listening device. You can, of course, find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. You can find for the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And of course, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, for even more Orlando Magic content. You can find that at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Now that you're done listening to us, be sure to check out the Locked On Sports Day 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to chat with Chris Manning of Locked On Cavs, take another temperature check of the series so far. You can check that out on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.